Actually, there are some, we have to talk about the transfer rule, but just to answer
Okay,
your
all
question
righty,
first.
okay.
There are some exceptions where if you have a disabled child,
Mhm.
you are allowed to keep that house, even for a single person, and transfer it for the benefit of that disabled child.
Really?
So,
So if you have a individual who's taking care of a challenged child,
mhm.
an adult, then, and he or she has to go into a facility as a single person,
Do
maybe a
your
widow,
thing.
or
Happy
widower,
birthday.
but
What's
the
going
child
on?
is there, then the child
Miss
would have
Miss Glamis,
that asset
pick her up.
could transfer to the
Happy
child?
birthday.
Right.
Oh, wow, that's
Assuming,
nice.
assuming they are disabled and
Okay, medically
officially
validated,
determined
okay.
by
Mhm.
Social Security to be disabled.
Okay, great.
But let's talk about the transfer rule, because that's very important. And
But let's talk about
one of the
transfers,
one of the most common questions, given everything I told you, you don't have to be real smart to say, well, why don't we give everything to our kids,
Yes,
or give it
All
away.
we need is
yes.
Well,
a parliament.
if you could do that, everybody would be
Mr.
on
Wiggles.
Medicaid.
Yes,
So
yes.
There
Medicaid
you
has a
go.
rule that says
Big
if you
love.
give away money or property, which
By his peers, in
Here we go again, bartender.
Bill, just to give
For
you a
fair
little bit
use
of
and
background
educational
about
purposes.
Mr. Milanek, attorney at law, he is a member of
On
the
another
Ohio State
safari.
Bar Association
Here,
Board of
Karma's
Certified
Kitchen.
Estate Planning, Trust, and Probate Specialist.
This
He
one is
is a
about
certified estate law attorney
tax
for
laws
the National Elder Law Foundation. He
after
is considered
you die.
a super lawyer.
Yeah, tax law.
By
Yeah,
his
nigga. After you
peers,
die, they coming to
in the area
collect.
of estate planning,
They
and he
they
is
they got a
also
death tax,
VA
buddy.
accredited attorney,
Pay
which
attention.
is very important for those of
To
you
the
that
super
are
lawyer.
veterans that need assistance as well. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation, because we just ran out of time the last time, about estate planning, and our focus today, and this is so very vital for all of you that are seniors and all of you who are children of seniors, and that is, the subject is going to be how to protect your assets from nursing home seizure. Now, let me give you all a discomforting but truthful statistic. 2 out of 3 individuals will spend some time in a long-term care facility. Now, please be aware, viewers, and this happens over and over again. Medicare, which is health care for individuals over the age of 65, is not Medicaid, which is an indigent program that has very specific federal guidelines and restrictions and is limited to people that are indigents. You can't have more than, I think the threshold in Ohio is $1,200 a month. But again, as a part of that qualification process, you have to know how this has to work, or else many of you are going to find yourselves losing your home, your stocks, bonds, investments, etc. The notion of having a legacy for your children and grandchildren just falls apart when you start talking about Medicaid and long-term care without private insurance. So, this is the subject today. Please sit down, listen carefully, take notes, and by all means, if you have questions and you need to sit down, Michael J. Milanig is the attorney that I strongly support. How are you today?
very good, thank you.
Good to have you
Yes,
back. I'm
thank you.
so
Super
glad
lawyer.
that you took time out of your schedule
Me too.
to continue our conversation. Where do we want to begin with this issue of nursing homes and assets?
Let's just begin with the basics and make sure everyone understands. Medicare, although it does cover normal medical expenses for older people, Medicare does not pay for the nursing home bill. There is a limited coverage. If you meet the criteria and you're in a nursing home for the first 20 days, it might cover it. And then day 21 through 100, it might continue to cover that. But in the long run, Medicare does not pay your nursing home bill.
And that is so misunderstood, because I hear and I've heard over the years, because I am a strong proponent of long-term care insurance. Reason being because people need it and they use it. But there is so much confusion in the marketplace, Michael, with regard to Medicare versus Medicaid. So, would you continue to elaborate?
Well, yeah, the Medicaid program, normally people think of that as someone who's poor or has some other type of program that they go on Medicaid. But in fact, Medicaid pays half of all nursing home bills overall. So it's a major source of payment for the nursing home industry. And that's what people, I think the national statistic is the average person goes into a nursing home and 6 months later they're on Medicaid.
There we
That
go.
is
6 months later, we
stunning.
on Medicaid, nigga.
And that's
You
very,
finna take
very,
your house,
very
your
troubling.
car, your kids,
Particularly
put them in the
today's
street.
economic
Oh,
climate.
hell no.
As I understand it,
tax
the
is this?
Medicaid
What kind of law
program
is
is a
this?
federal state.
How, see, them people
program.
got too much
Correct.
power to
It's
just
a little
rob just the
unusual
poor
because
people. This is
You
crazy,
have
man.
federal programs like.
This is like slavery, secret slavery. Nigga, I thought I was free, and and the motherfucking system is plotting to rob you after you die. Them some greedy ass cannibals, ain't they? Sharks ain't the word, nigga. This is cannibals. They eating each other and everybody else too, nigga. And now we got all these new ones. Oh no! I'm talking about these new secret laws. I didn't know they was gonna get this ruthless. I thought they was gonna pass a law and it was gonna take a long time. No, they already passed the law and they kept it a secret. Oh, okay, I see. Because I kept saying, why they ain't passed that law? They're going to pass this law, and then I find out that they did pass a law to rob your ass secretly after you die. They're going to give you this bill that you never knew you was accumulating.
Run by the federal government, so if you want to apply for benefits, you're talking to a federal agency. But Medicaid program, so we have federal money and a federal agency, and Congress passes laws, but each state
Congress passed
actually
this law.
administers and runs the program.
Told you.
Do they have their own
Them punk-ass
guidelines?
congressmen
Or
ain't
are there
nothing nice.
federal mandates?
It's kind of a mix, yeah. There are federal mandates, so for the most part, they're required to follow federal
They shady as hell, ain't they?
law, but there's a lot of areas where each state
Nigga,
is
they talking
allowed.
about how much they trying to protect the senior citizens and how much they love the kids, but they secretly passing a law to make the kids homeless and rob the fucking grandparents for everything they got, the kids' inheritance.
Allowed to make certain choices.
With that
have
Medi-Cal,
differences,
and with these nursing homes,
more
and
importantly, since
and
they're
with them
administering
hospital
it,
bills,
they
and,
interpret it and do things.
and with them student loans, all that shit, man. They coming back, man. They gonna rob motherfuckers. So people was never free. This place was always like had a bunch of traps and tricks, you know.
The way they want to.
tie
So we
you
really
up.
have 50 different Medicaid programs, and it's important to understand that you can go on the internet and get all kinds of
Motherfucker came in,
information.
Right,
have
it
nothing
is
when they
very,
die.
actually, it's all kinds of
Yeah.
And
information.
gave a nigga a death tax. You can't have shit when you die.
But if it's not, in terms of Medicaid, it needs to be specific to your state.
I mean, your
Because
kids.
If you're just looking at something general, it might
It's
not
a
be
damn
correct for all.
shame, bartender.
So,
It's a damn
given the
shame.
fact that, and I was doing some research on this Medicaid issue, and frankly, Medicaid is bankrupting the budget for the state of Ohio. It is a large portion of the revenues that are coming in, a large portion of that is going to pay for Medicaid recipients.
Right, and politically, that's a big, Medicaid is a huge budget issue,
I
and
told you, don't be
I don't have any
doing that.
solution. My job as an
I know,
attorney
I
is
know.
advise people, so I don't have any
Right,
budget advice or solutions. My job is just to figure out what the law is and advise people.
Right.
But yeah, it is a big budget problem.
right. Well, I can only conclude that as we go deeper into this business cycle in terms of declining revenues, Medicaid is going to be more and more and more targeted as an area for cutbacks. And that's why this subject matter today is so very important. And from where I stand as an advisor, you're saying that usually and typically within 6 months of a person going into a nursing home facility for long-term care purposes, that they are penniless.
Well, that's like a nationwide kind of average.
Stat,
or
okay,
statistic.
right. Well, if you look at $9,000 a month as being the average cost, not including Alzheimer, which is a more expensive type of a
Right.
process, $54,000 goes fast.
Sure, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and then they've liquidated everything and they have nothing. And then at that point, they're technically bankrupt and are qualifiable potentially under Medi-Cal guidelines.
Well, the basic
Amen.
rule in Ohio is if your total assets
Hey man, this is all over. This ain't just Ohio.
to resources
This happening all over.
then you're eligible.
Okay.
There's a lot more
Big-
to it than that, but it's
Right.
It's like a Ponzi scam. You know, it's like a scam, ain't it? They tell the people we got free health care, send you all that health care shit. Come to find out, nigga, that was a scam. They was trying to get a bill so that they could use it against you later to sue you for every fucking thing you got. That shit wasn't nothing but a student loan. I'm talking about free Medi-Cal, Medicare, medical care. That was bullshit. You needed insurance.
with other rules above that, like and for a married couple, if the
That's a damn shame, ain't
spouse,
it,
we call
bartender?
that person a community spouse, is
Mhm.
They
still
lied to us, said this America, the land of the brave and the free, and everything, and that everybody paying the taxes for all these people, poor people, and that these poor people is a burden on the system. Come to find out, they was robbing the fucking poor people. Poor people wasn't getting away with nothing, because everything they got, that they put a bill and said you owe this shit back. Remember when you got this assistance from us? Now you owe it back. So all of them damn motherfuckers, them no good rotten haters who was out there talking about, oh, the poor people on welfare is sucking up all my tax money. I'm paying for all this shit. No, motherfucker, they got robbed. Are you haters? You're damn lie. It's proof right now. They telling you all them poor people, they got robbed because they got to pay that shit back. So all that shit you was talking about, how much they was a burden on the system and how lazy they was and get a job. Well, they got a job. They got robbed, and now they owe everything they got is to the system. So you all that stuff you was talking about them, you just as bad as the system. Because you was wrong. Them people got did wrong by a motherfucking corrupt, crooked system, and you helped the system tear them down. So there you go. I mean, you paid for the system to break them, to get them broke.
living in the home.
And they complained and said that
One car.
it was their fault.
Spouse is exempt.
Man, if it's their fault, don't give them shit, and then let them all fucking whatever they gonna do. You know what I mean? Why? You know what I mean? Don't give them don't say blame them for something, and then in the end they ain't got nothing anyway.
So that's kind of beyond the
Nothing from nothing, leave nothing.
You don't always have to get down to exactly 1,500.
Then
other than
scammed
you're
all of the
exempt
poor
above
people.
that.
Well,
with
I
some
want to talk about
Medi-Cal.
this because
If you need some medical care, we gonna put this on your bill, and then you ain't gotta pay us now. And you don't even know what the bill is. The bill could be some astronomical shit that you can never ever pay for. But we gonna put this on your bill, and you gotta pay us back later. And so poor people ain't getting nothing for free. See that's some bullshit. But my point is, why they gonna put them all down and tell them they is getting something for free then? That's my point. All them damn haters talking about, oh, poor people just riding off the back of the system. No, they wasn't. They was victims of the system, and they got re-victimized by the system. They was victims of the system. Well, that a blast.
in Cincinnati, there was a I-Team, Channel 9 I-Team
They tore down all the projects,
investigation about a
put them
couple.
over there in a
and it was
motherfucking beautiful home, and they gave them no job to pay the rent.
It's on internet, and it is very troubling.
Because they didn't pass a whole bunch of
Because this
laws that say
couple,
you
she
can't get
had,
this job if you
a
a
surgery,
felon or whatever.
major surgery where
If you don't fit they damn requirements, you can't get a job. So America to me is like a pirate place. This place is ran by pirates, it's crooks. It's a place of like downsizing shit. You know, it's like Russian roulette. Today you up, the next day you down. You know what I mean? One day you up, and the next day you down. So it ain't no stability because there's all these laws. It's like pirate laws. They could take away everything. It's like the devil gave it to you. He can take it all back with a secret fake ass law.
major incision was made in the middle of her body.
An American
And
dream.
it was a deep
A
wound.
nightmare.
And essentially, and I'm just constructing this, the hospital wanted to discharge her. And she did not want to go into a facility.
Because every young person got to become an old person one day. So just because they lying to the old people don't mean they ain't lying to the young people, because one day they got to get old too. So if they lying to their grandparents,
care, for long-term care,
then
because
they
it was
need
not,
to,
it was related to the
brush up on their law.
surgery, the procedure.
They need to brush up on their civics, on their civic law,
But the long-term care component is
on their health care law.
not covered by Medicare. She needed to have round-the-clock care. And she was unwilling, and this was what she said, she was unwilling to sign over the house. Now, she's married, the husband is in the home, and she said she was unwilling to sign over the home. So he was now responsible, Michael, for her care. And they showed on television him actually covering his hands with gloves and doing wound healing, going inside of her. And it was just like, this is the most horrible thing. But the thing that shocked me, and the reason I know something was not right with this as we're looking at it, is there's no way if she went into a facility that they would take their home under the community spouse provisions for the state of Ohio. So how did that information get communicated?
Well, it's hard for me to
Yeah.
answer that for sure till I know all the facts, but it sounds like that she and her husband were just afraid they were going to lose everything, which is generally correct. But so based on that fear, instead of seeing an elder law attorney, she just went home. But yeah, the home would have been exempt.
That's what I know in my own private practice. I was so shocked, and this has been, I mean, you can go on the internet.
Ain't that a damn shame? They're going to take your house if you're single, but if you're married, it's exempt. This is bull crap, man. This is slavery.
And see this. It's a horrific story. And the response from the public was outrage, and this is terrible, and this is unconscionable. But the reality is, it's Medicaid. And if you find yourself in that type of a situation, then this could potentially happen.
Sure, and again, I don't know all about their situation, but she should have just gone to an elder law attorney and gotten, instead of just being afraid
elder law
what was going to happen, gotten some more answers.
Right.
I don't even know what that is. Elder law attorney.
Well, they pleaded to the public. The program aired. The response was just overwhelming. And so now you've got nurses volunteering to come to the house to provide care. And all of these support systems are now coming to the table. But the truth of the matter is, Michael, as you and I both know, this happens every day. Every day, people are having to make decisions, and families, about Medicaid.
Sure.
And if they're not willing or able to take care of that parent or loved one, then those decisions are now upon them.
Yeah.
What would you normally recommend?
Well, let me mention this. You kind of bring up an important issue about the home. People want to stay home.
They do.
Whether they need care or not. Her issue is a care issue, but people want to stay home. No one wants to go to a nursing home, and that's always people's goal. And there are a lot of times when people.
Oh, so jail is the new nursing home.
The family takes.
So a lot of these people, by they going to jail, they missed them payments. They didn't have the jail was the nursing home. They didn't have to make them payments, man.
For them,
jail was the nursing. Prison.
But some people don't have.
For the elderly.
Children or other family that can do it, or they do, but their kids are in New York or California.
Yeah.
And then some people do have a family member that take care of them, but to do that day in and day out, 24/7, for maybe somebody has Alzheimer's, where you just have to be there.
Right.
You're not doing nursing type care, but you just have to be there. That's a real strain. And then sometimes people do have real medical needs where they really need skilled care, and for someone to do that, it's just not even possible or extremely burdensome. And so
They ain't
And I
getting no
never- I
skilled
have
care in
family
them
that-
prisons.
That's the issue with. I never tell
They ain't
people
got no
about it.
nursing home in them
I
prisons.
never want to tell
They ain't
anybody.
charging them
I
damn
say, go
inmates,
ahead
you
and
know,
try that.
$6,000 a month,
Yeah, I was.
$9,000 a month.
And after a while,
So why they
it's
gonna
just
charge
tough.
the average citizen who ain't in jail that much because they got a fucking facility out here? Why they can't charge them like they charging them inmates in jail? Nigga, something reasonable. How the fuck is anybody gonna afford $9,000 a month, or even one of them said 16,000, 12,000 a month? Can't nobody afford no shit like that, even with insurance.
Working then we look at going to the nursing
So ain't
home.
nobody
yeah.
going to no damn nursing
Right,
home.
right.
So,
Right,
I-
because
that
frankly,
shit,
in
that if people knew what that shit was all about, and that they got to pay that shit back, they wouldn't even be. I don't know how they gonna afford it unless they're rich,
the early stages of Alzheimer, I think families can come together
and
and
they still
support,
gonna be in debt.
but the condition is a deteriorating
So
condition.
I think that person gonna
And
be living at
the
home.
point of,
I think somebody gonna get them a health care aid or something, and work it like that. Fuck a nursing home. Just let the parents stay, the older person stay at home, and then get them a health care aid. I've been working like that. They're going to a nursing home shit.
their days and nights are confused and things begin to really fall
12,000 a
apart.
month,
Mom
nigga.
thinks that the the dishcloth is cabbage and is cooking
Right.
it,
Yeah.
and or they don't know what the stove means and
Sure.
create problems. Then you're now confronted with what we
That's like
should
buying
be-
a nursing home a
And you know
home.
what happens too a lot of times is the caregiver,
Nigga, that's enough money to buy the nursing home a home. Fuck that.
the spouse, it kills them, frankly. It's so hard on them.
It is hard. I can
That's
only
cold-blooded,
imagine.
blood.
I've certainly over the years dealt with this, but
They do you in the beginning, do you in the middle, and do you in and rob you in the end.
my main concern is always what is going to happen with the caregiver.
Yeah.
Watching the spouse or the parent
Well, at least the rappers
deteriorate,
didn't have to go through that shit.
watching with
You know,
helplessness.
If you
and
die
these
young,
kind
you
of
ain't gotta go through all that
about
nursing
a
home bills
condition
and
that there
shit.
is no answer to.
They
It
didn't get a chance
continues
to
its
rob you.
downward progression.
Sure.
So what are your recommendations? If I came into you and I gave you a scenario, and I said, listen, my father has Parkinson's disease. It's, I've tried to provide him with care. We have significant assets. What would your response be?
Well, I'll tell you, before I talk about planning options, let me kind of mention a few more basics.
Okay, that's fine.
So, first of all, understand for a husband and wife, Medicaid looks at everything they both own. So if the
Okay.
husband goes to the nursing home, it doesn't matter if everything's in the wife's name. So it's
Okay.
all kind of marital property.
Because that's misunderstood too.
Right. And then, and actually, it used to be different back before 1989.
That was
A
funny
long
as a
time
mother.
ago. So
The
that's kind of
punish.
rule. And then rule number one is $1,500 is our basic eligibility limit.
Okay.
The home is exempt for a married couple, not for a single person. If you're single, you have a 13-month kind of exemption period. But
Let's
after
go.
that, it's not exempt. One car for the community spouse is exempt. For a single person, you have a car, one exemption for a car only up to $4,500, which is funny because
Wow. Do
every
you
time
know
I
any
say that,
cars for
well,
$4,500?
you see that number came into the law in 1970,
Okay.
and we have something called inflation, which they've never adjusted that number for inflation.
Wow.
So that all you get is a $4,500 car.
Okay.
That's for a single person.
Okay. And are they allowed to keep that car in perpetuity or what?
Well, they can have a car worth under $4,500 and still be eligible for Medicaid.
Okay,
As a
got it.
fact, most people don't need that. But,
Right. Okay.
and then also there's what's called the Community Spouse Resource Allowance. So in
Okay.
addition to what I already mentioned, if you're the community spouse still at home, you're allowed to keep half of the total resources up to a certain maximum. So and they value that as you know, the stock market's going up and down every day and values
Yeah,
change.
mhm.
As of the first day you go into a nursing home, you take kind of a snapshot or balance sheet, and then the community spouse can keep half.
Okay.
But up to a certain maximum of approximately $113,000. So
Okay.
that's the most you'd get to keep,
Plus the house
plus the house and one car.
and one car. Now the house, is that 100%? Or does the program state that there's a 50% interest to the?
No,
Okay, it's
the
100%.
whole house, and technically there is under the Deficit Reduction Act in 2005, there's actually a home equity limit now, so it can't exceed approximately $500,000.
Okay,
But the real estate market was different when they passed that
Oh,
law.
yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and frankly, I never see anybody in Dayton where we've a house at that value that we've been concerned about.
okay,
And actually, even that, technically, for the community spouse, that limit doesn't apply anyway.
okay,
But I don't want to spend a lot of time on that.
Okay,
So-
all right.
So we have the community spouse resource allowance. IRAs and pension plans are not exempt, okay?
Period.
We kind of think they are because we hear that they're, tax-free
Mm-hmm.
and they are protected from creditors. There's some laws about that, but Medicaid counts them as long as if it's a pension balance that you have access to, it's countable.
now,
So,
if an IRA, it doesn't matter if it's in his name or her name, because they're
right,
combining both
Combined
under
together.
community spouse provisions.
correct.
And that money, if it's, it shows as an asset that's available, correct?
Yes, yes.
Wow,
So that all counts.
that's major.
Let me think, missing any other rules? Generally anything you have a value is countable. So even life insurance, a lot of them have a cash value.
Yeah,
Now, if it's just term, that doesn't count.
Mhm.
Term
'Cause there's
meaning it
nothing
only
there.
pays when you pass away.
right,
But some of them have a cash value.
okay, so they are allowed to keep and count term insurance, whether it's jointly benefits or beneficiaries or him or her, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
Okay. What about children living at the home? Because many times parents are having to take care of handicapped children.
Mhm.
That's an expense. How does that work?
Well, I mean, in terms of the expenses matter, we're kind of, in terms of eligibility, we want to focus on assets.
Okay,
But actually, there are some, we have to talk about the transfer rule, but just to answer
okay,
your
all
question
righty,
first.
okay.
There are some exceptions where if you have a disabled child,
Mhm.
you are allowed to keep that house, even for a single person, and transfer it for the benefit of that disabled child.
Really?
So,
So if you have a individual who's taking care of a challenged child,
mhm,
an adult, then, and he or she has to go into a facility as a single person, maybe a widow or widower,
Mhm.
but the child is there, then the child would have, that asset could transfer to the child?
correct.
Oh, wow, that's
Assuming they are disabled and
okay, medically
officially
validated, okay.
determined by
Mhm.
Social Security to be disabled.
Okay, great.
But let's talk about the transfer rule, because that's very important. And
But let's
one of
talk
the- one of
about
the most-
transfers,
One of the
yeah.
most common questions, given everything I told you, you don't have to be real smart to say, well, why don't we just give everything to our kids
Yes,
and give it away?
yes, yes.
Well, if you could do that, everybody would be on Medicaid.
Yes,
So
yes.
Medicaid has a rule that says if you give away money or property, which means transferring things to the children or whoever your family is, put in their name, you're going to be ineligible for basically up to 5 years.
So there's a 5-year.
They call it a 5-year look back.
Okay.
So if you make gift transfers, you got 5 years where you're ineligible. And then the odd thing about this rule, I really kind of have to give you a numerical example to make it clear, but if I transfer money, maybe just even $50,000.
Okay.
And then I go to a nursing home, and I spend down.
Okay.
Say
so
I'm
you're-
single,
Mhm.
I get below 1,500, and I say, oh, well, I'll go apply for Medicaid. I apply for Medicaid because I'm below 1,500, and they look back within 5 years, they see, oh, you gave away 50,000 to your son. Now you're ineligible for starting now for the next, and the way they do it, they take, let's say it's 60,000, they take 60,000 and they divide by an official penalty rate, they call it, of 6,023. So you would now be ineligible for the next 10 months, starting,
Wow.
not when you made the gift transfer,
Right.
but starting when you apply for Medicaid and you're below 1,500. So now we got a 10-month
So now you're
window.
impoverished
Yeah,
and you're ineligible. Am I
Correct.
not hearing
That's
that
right. That's
correctly?
correct. Right.
You're broke.
Yeah.
You are now ineligible
yeah,
for that 10-month period
right.
because of your gifting of this money to the
That's
child.
right. That's right.
I don't think people know that.
No, and a lot of times Medicaid presume you're making they call it an improper transfer. And of course, a lot of times people, they give their car to a grandchild, or people here, you can give away $10,000 a year. It's actually 13 now, but that's gift tax law. Medicaid has no exception for giving away 13,000 a year. So people do that, and they're healthy. They're not thinking about a nursing home at all. But then 3 years later, something happens.
And there they are.
Yeah.
Stuck with that.
And people ask me sometimes, they say, well, what's going to happen to this person? Are they going to get kicked out? And I said, well, yeah, they might. The nursing home doesn't, they can't just, have people sitting there not getting paid. But what can happen is, if that 60,000 could be returned to mom, that undoes the penalty.
Right.
So that's a potential solution. But if it's gone, then you can't return that.
So if it's spent, then the children are going to have a dilemma for 10 months.
Correct.
In this particular illustration.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, now you might say, or the kids might say, well, we'll use that 60,000 to pay the bill. That actually doesn't work. You have to do the math, but I can just tell you from doing experience, it doesn't work, because the penalty rate we're talking about, I said with 60,000, we divide by 6,023, it's about 10 months. The problem is the nursing home, at least around Montgomery County area, will cost more than 6,000 a month.
Yeah,
It'll probably be more like 8,000 a month.
Yeah.
So you're going to use up that 60,000 before you get through the 10 months. So.
Can you afford that?
What do you recommend?
That's more than your house.
I recommend they don't do the
That's
transfer.
more. That's like giving them people a
think
house.
it's a good plan. We'll transfer.
Giving them your house.
Hope we get
That's
through 5
basically
years.
what they doing is buying your house.
Yeah.
You don't want to take
I mean,
the risk.
stealing it. Because they charge you too much for their services.
What I generally do for people, because the answer is
You
different
can't
for
tell
everybody.
them what
There's
the
no
rate
simple
is.
answer.
Right.
If you go to
They
an
tell you
attorney
what
or
the
someone,
rate
they say,
is.
oh, you should do an annuity. And that's what they tell everybody. Or
So
you
now
should
they
do
use
a
a little
trust.
bitty
And that
ass
just means that's what they're doing.
care they
It's
giving
not
you.
necessarily what's best
Take
for
your
you.
whole
Right.
charge
What's
you
best for you
too
is
much
different.
astronomical
What I
amount.
do is I get people's
Get you in
financial
a debt
information,
and just
copies
foreclose
of their
on your
bank
property.
statement, deeds, and all those things.
So a
That
lot
way
of
I
them
have accurate
foreclosures
information from
wasn't just
I review that
because
and I
they
prepare an
took
asset
out home
protection
loans.
plan.
It's
Based on
also
their
because they had to
circumstances.
pay off bills like this.
So
Okay.
based on their circumstances, I'll say, here's your options. And I'll give you some examples. I want to give you one example, which I like to give, because
Didn't know
someone
the
came to me a
insurance
long time
laws.
ago, and his wife went into the nursing home, and he was fairly young, he was
Insurance
in his
law.
60s.
Yeah, that's
And they had a house, and he had a truck, and then I think about $30,000.
Okay.
Now, we talked about the resource allowance, remember?
Right,
So he would be
right.
allowed to keep half of that 30,000.
Right.
Or actually, there's a minimum, but let's just say that's half of the 30,000. And you might think,
They
well,
telling you what to do with your
I couldn't
money.
do much for him, or it wouldn't be with him paying me a lot of money. But I said, well, bring your things in, copies
Secretly.
of all your information.
Because you don't even know you
I reviewed it,
accumulating
and I saw
this
you
bill.
got a $20,000
And then one day
loan
they
on
show
the
up with a
truck.
letter talking about
And
you
I
owe them
said-
this
I
much
said,
money.
You hurry up and go out and pay that off right away, and she was eligible right away.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Now, he could have, in paying off that truck, the $30,000 that they both had. And that money could be used to pay off the truck.
Right.
And then there would not be a spend down because
Right.
she's technically,
Yeah, I mean, I saved him 15,000. If he wouldn't have done anything, they would have told him down at the Medi-Cal office that, you gotta spend 15,000.
oh my gosh.
But here he's
That's a
financially
good
better off
piece.
because he's
That's
paid off.
nice.
So I
Good.
just give that example to show that you don't have to have a lot of money to make it worthwhile. And it didn't take me much time, so I don't remember what my bill was. It wasn't that much.
So when I was a kid,
So some of the, and that's an
Watching
example,
shit like
some
this
of
on
the simplest
TV.
options are what I call a spend down plan.
Okay.
So instead of, let's say you have to spend,
so when I was a kid watching, them type of movies where they got people in nursing homes and shit, and they was bringing them flowers and talking all nice to the nurses and shit. Man, they tricked the hell out of me because I thought them places was all pleasant and cool and all that. Come to find out that they crooks and they charging too much of robbing them people out all their money and stuff. And they see now anyway by the time they get there, so they don't even know what's going on. They can't even complain. Some of them, I ain't gonna say all of them, but a lot of them can't complain in them nursing homes and stuff. and don't know they getting robbed like that it costs that much to live there. If I'd have known that, I would have been like, this is garbage. Them nurses ain't all as nice as I thought. And the doctors damn sure ain't nice. And then a lot of them serial killers, they had a bunch of nurse serial killers in the past that then took the old people out, did them the total, complete disrespect. Just took their voice away from, first they stole all their money, now they just gonna take their life. It was a bunch of serial killers that poisoned a bunch of elderly people in them hospitals too, in them convalescent homes.
Now, $50,000. We do our numbers. You have to spend down 50. We have a community spouse at home. Instead of just paying a nursing home bill, you could do things like pay off a loan.
Right.
Maybe you have a home equity loan. Certainly pay off any loans. The community spouse could buy a new car. They might have an old car, and maybe they don't want a new car, but
right. Are there caps on how much they can spend on a new car?
There's technically no limit, but I say there's a reasonable limit. I don't think you can go out and buy a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, that's
so there's a
bit
reasonable
much.
limit.
Yeah, okay.
You could fix up the house, so you could put on a new roof or furnace. And the thing about some of these things, if you just spent $50,000 on the nursing home, a year later, then you might have to get a new roof.
Right.
Or
and now you're out.
Or you might need a new car 3 years from now. So now you're out. So those are what we call spend down strategies.
Okay. What about buying in advance on a new car?
There's
on how much they can spend on a new car.
There's technically no limit, but I say there's a that's the first thing, doing an irrevocable prepaid funeral plan.
Okay.
And that's almost really the first thing, because let's say someone's single, they're spending down, they're below $1,500, they're on Medicaid, then they pass away. Well, the $1,500 is not enough to pay for all that.
No, it is not.
So a prepaid funeral plan and a burial plot, if you want a plot.
What about is that
You
all
have to-
allowable?
all
that's
those
allowable.
things,
Okay.
so you can do that.
Okay.
Um,
What about clothing and things for while you're in
Personal
the
items,
nursing
and
home?
for a single person too, especially, I say, look,
So you gotta
does your dad
prepay
need
for
anything?
all this.
Right.
Does he need
You see all
glasses
these rules
sometimes?
like you was in a penitentiary somewhere, and to go to these penitentiaries, you gotta
Right.
know all these rules. I'm even talking about at your home, nigga, at your house. You got all
That's
these
very
rules
good
in your
information.
life.
then
And if you
keep
don't know all these
1,500,
rules,
I mean,
then you ain't,
$1,500, so you might as well keep
you know,
1,500.
they gonna cheat you.
So again, those are kind of what we call spend down strategies. So for a lot of people,
You ain't a
that's,
lawyer. You don't know all these laws.
a good thing to do. It just depends on the numbers.
Okay.
Some other
California
things,
Medi-Cal
if you're
healthcare law and all
healthy,
that.
well, first of all, I really should say, and this is kind of
Or whatever
I think
state
really,
you
you
in.
might want to say something, but the best thing
I
for
know the
people to
healthcare
do,
laws
if
and
they're
all
healthy, is
these
get
laws.
long-term care insurance.
Insurance law.
Would you say that again?
Yeah.
Because I am so
Just having a job ain't working no
aggravated
more.
by
We in the space age,
complete and total
bartender.
absence of reality.
We out here with the
thinking
Jetsons and they ain't
for so
ready
many
yet.
people,
You know
they
we having a
don't
problem.
believe it's going to happen to them.
Yeah, and
So
you know what I
Bastro.
hear from people, I don't
What's
sell
up, Elroy?
but I always try to talk to
What's up,
people.
Jane? What's up,
The
Judy?
kind of reaction I get is, oh, I hear it's expensive.
It's George.
Why don't you
I'm back.
follow up and
Yeah, I afford a higher premium.
So the insurance
I also
policies
tell
got a
agents,
lock
be
on
aware of that. and
health
just
care.
tell-
Because if you
tell
don't
your
get it now,
clients,
pay me now.
look,
You gotta
if
pay
you
the
tell me you
government,
can
Uncle
only
Sam
budget
later.
$2,000 a year for
Medi-Cal.
premium, well, that's what we'll get for
If
you.
you don't
We'll get
pay
the
them
most
private
benefits,
insurance
$2,000 a year
companies
premium.
now,
And
you gotta
'cause
pay
those
Uncle
variables
Sam
will
later.
change.
Of course.
Ain't that something they got us locked up,
also, I
bartender?
would say, germane to what you're talking
Got us
about,
locked
is
up.
that the family needs to
Won't let me
consider
out.
Funding the
Won't let, not without a lawyer.
premium payment.
Locked
Because
up.
ultimately, it is a family.
Insurance lawyer. Nigga, you need
matter.
insurance.
Sure.
And the stress.
Won't let me out
and
for your
the-
money. Ain't that a
just,
bitch?
the
You thought they
just the
locked you up.
dread
You didn't forgot they
of
locked your
that
money up
thing
too.
happening.
That's why we gotta have all
and not
these
having
insurance
the
to protect
funds
our
in
money
place to
from the
ensure,
government. What kind of shit is this? The government's a
highest
crook,
quality care,
and then you gotta pay off the
as well
middleman
as under the
to
Ohio
keep the government
Partnership
from robbing you.
Program.
Kind of
Aren't
shit.
those assets exempt then?
Yeah, the newer policies now are part of what they call the partnership plan, and it basically gives people an additional, we call like an exemption. And I'll give it a simple example. Let's say Fred buys an Ohio partnership plan, long-term care policy, and it pays $200,000 total benefit.
Right,
and he has 300,000 of his
I
own.
don't want none of that
Right.
shit.
right.
So he goes
I
into the
don't
nursing
wanna.
home. It pays it
I
out
just
that
want to stay
200,000.
home. You gotta have a house first,
And then he has another
and
300,000
then be
himself.
old,
He
and
doesn't
then
have to
pay
spend down the
somebody to
50,000.
take care of
He's
me or
allowed
something. You know what I
now to
mean?
keep
I don't
200,000
want none of that.
plus
I'm going gotta go
1,500. He
buy
spends
some
down to
stocks and $200,000,
201,500, and then he's eligible for
and
Medicaid.
just so I
And
can
that
go live in a
200,000
nursing
can
home.
actually be a part
Nigga,
of
please.
his,
I'm gonna get him the $200,000,
Yeah, there's two
and
other
I
things.
need a home, and they gonna buy a home. Hell
But
no.
transfer, you
Yes.
can't
Nigga,
transfer.
just
it.
let me
Well,
stay at home.
That's an exception. He would
Let
be
me
allowed to give
rent
that to
me,
children or
hire
whatever
me
he
my
wants.
That's
own
powerful.
healthcare
And we
aid,
haven't talked about estate recovery yet.
and tell them motherfuckers take that $200,000 and shove it up your ass. Cause if I had it, I'd keep it.
But it's also
Fuck
exempt
all
from
that.
estate recovery.
It
I
is.
So
apologize
there's
to
a
you
real,
too.
a big
But
benefit
this
to
don't
that.
sound fair for elderly
Boy,
people.
but it's kind of
So they
like,
can say that I'm saying something negative if they want to, but that don't sound fair to nobody. And if it do, man, how Hitler? 'Cause that don't sound fair to me. Y'all gonna charge all them old people all that and tell them they need enough money to buy a house, and that's what and let them have your house, man.
at one
Kids
level, I
homeless
said,
in
we
the
need to
street
treat this
behind
like
that
car
shit.
insurance. Nobody likes to pay the premiums on car insurance until you're the one that gets crashed.
Mhm.
So the tax
say,
on
well,
life
what's the
is
probability of me getting
insurance.
hit?
Ah,
100%
Yeah.
when it happens.
Yeah.
But in the interim, you carry it because it is insurance. It's just
Mhm.
an offset for risk. Same thing on homeowners.
Mhm.
People say, how many times has
You
my
gotta
house
pay the
burned down?
middleman
I
to
said, all
protect
it
you
takes is
from
one.
Uncle
Yeah.
Sam.
One
Right.
time.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, am I ever glad I had insurance? So
Sure.
I understand what you're saying, but that's major to be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
exempt those large sums of money
Mhm.
so that can pass through to your family
Right.
rather than seeing it pass away to the government.
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
that to me is major. Well, continue. This is
Okay,
good.
so that's
I'm
really
enjoying
our
this.
first plan, is
Okay, all
long-term
right.
insurance. Then our next plan is to look into some type of estate planning or asset protection planning in terms of Medicaid eligibility. And first of all, people have two goals there. The most important goal for a married couple is they want to protect things for their spouse. You don't want your spouse to lose half of everything you got or more.
Right.
A secondary goal is people usually want to pass things on to their children or nieces or nephews, whoever
Or
their
churches
beneficiary
or
of children.
children.
So that's kind of secondary. I'll tell you, 90% of the people I do this kind of work for are in what I call a crisis situation. Somebody's already in a nursing home or about ready to go.
Oh, no.
And you might not think there's anything we can do, but like I say, that's 90% of the people I do this kind of work for. For the other 10%, if someone comes in and maybe they can't get insurance because of a
Okay.
health problem, or maybe they do get it, but they still it's not really getting a great policy. One of the most common things I do is set up an irrevocable, I call it an irrevocable Medicaid trust. We put money in there, and it's protected, it's exempt in terms of Medicaid.
Okay.
Now, of course, you can't just do that the day before you go on Medicaid. We have that 5-year look back.
So he's
it's
the
really
insurance
only for someone
lawyer.
who's relatively healthy, and we put money
He's
in
the
there,
middleman
and
that
it's
everybody needs.
protected. Well,
He's the little
after you
man
get
that
through the 5
everybody
years.
needs.
Okay.
Now, I describe this
That every
trust to
little
people.
man
I say,
needs.
well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have your money in there, but you have full access
Yeah,
to it.
right.
Middleman
So,
protecting the
usually
middle,
another
little
family
man.
member is the trustee in charge of it. And also, people usually don't put everything in there.
From
So if
Uncle
you have,
Scam.
$200,000 estate, you're not gonna put everything in there. You're gonna keep, 20, 40,000 still in your own name.
Right.
And that's
okay.
just an individual choice for the person. I tell them, it's just whatever you feel comfortable with, you still wanna have in your bank.
Well, even with the look-back provisions of 5 years, if you're setting up this Medicaid trust and you're naming a grandchild as the trustee, for an example, and you do need to get money to live on outside of the money you have,
They gonna tell you
is
what
that
to
an
do with your
appropriate,
money.
can the
God damn,
grandchild
they done locked up your
disperse
money.
money out of the trust for you?
Well, not really. I mean,
Okay.
that's, like I say, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right, I
Well,
got you.
Now, I'm sorry, you can reserve the income. So if you got money
Okay.
in there, dividends or interest, yeah, you can get the income.
Okay.
But not the principal.
Can you reallocate those assets so that the income could potentially increase?
Oh, sure, yeah. The way I describe trust to people is, think of a trust as like an umbrella over whatever you have. So if you
Okay.
have a brokerage account or CDs, so yeah, you can buy and sell and change all that. But
Okay.
it's still in the trust.
Right, okay.
Right.
And with the trust being controlled
Trust
under
lawyer.
the aegis of someone else.
Whoever the
Loving,
trustee
trusted,
is.
yeah, loving,
right.
trusted
Right.
relationship.
Right.
That's a
right.
powerful vehicle, but you still
Yeah.
are up into that
Yeah.
5 year.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody.
Money
Mm-hmm.
and power.
You know, it's
The
an option
power
I
of money.
present to some people.
Okay,
Name
Another
it is-
common thing is for a married couple is an annuity. So
Okay.
it's a special type of annuity that under the Medicaid rules and regulations will be exempt. Well, for example, let's just say we have a married couple
Mm-hmm.
and they have $200,000 and they would normally have to spend down $100,000.
right, okay,
Instead of spending it, you could put $100,000 into a special type of annuity, and it would pay to the community spouse every month. You would meet your spend down, and the other spouse would be eligible right away, and that annuity payment that goes to the community spouse, they'd be allowed to keep that.
and the reason they would be allowed to keep that is because of the income threshold under those program guidelines?
No, it has nothing to do with the income threshold, because it's a couple of reasons. First of all, the annuity has to be designed correctly under the rules and
Okay.
regulations of Medicaid. And the income that's paid to the community spouse, the community spouse is allowed to keep whatever income they have. And let me talk about the income
Oh,
rules.
my words,
Yeah, now-
this is good.
So far, we've talked about resources or
Right,
assets.
exactly.
And there's also income rules, and this is where the states differ.
Income
In a state like
rules.
Colorado,
Ain't that a
they
blast?
do have an income limit.
They
And if
got
you're a
your-
dollar above it,
you
you're
got
not
your
eligible.
My
bankroll
goodness.
Ohio
locked
doesn't have
up.
that.
Okay.
Ohio really doesn't have an income rule in terms of
Don't
eligibility.
let me out.
But after you're eligible, there are rules. So
Got you
the,
locked up,
the
bartender.
community spouse, they get Social
Every dollar
Security or
you
pension
made.
or annuity income, they can keep
They
all
got
that.
a serial number on
Oh, my goodness.
But then the nursing
it.
homes,
It's on D block. Your local penitentiary. Every dollar you got, they got a serial number, nigga. They want it back.
spouse, their income all
Like
has to
Mark
go
Money,
towards
bartender,
nursing.
they
So
want
their
it back.
pension and Social Security has to go towards a nursing home bill, and then Medicaid picks up the rest.
Okay, so there's no combining of income and splitting down the middle?
Correct,
That's
although
an
there
error?
is, I want to mention what's called the monthly income allowance.
Okay,
You know, you can imagine you might have the high income spouse
Right.
in the nursing home, and
Right.
there's someone at home getting.
right, the widow, I mean, yeah,
$400.
yeah, 400, the wife,
Oh, yeah.
right.
So Medicaid has an allowance, and it's a kind of a complicated formula, but there's a formula that provides the community spouse.
I bet they ain't paying alimony. I mean, I'm just saying. I know they married, but I'm just saying that I bet you they wouldn't pay alimony.
So there's a certain minimum.
Talking about they gonna pay
Okay.
something. Ain't no alimony
I can't give you
insurance.
the whole formula, but what I tell
Ain't no
clients is,
alimony insurance.
it's not based on what you need, okay? There's a minimum amount you get, and that's it, so.
It ain't what you
And I can
need.
just tell you from experience, it's never really.
It ain't even what you want.
People are used to living on two incomes.
Based on
and
what
now
you
they're losing
get.
part of it, so.
He
don't get
already
much.
told you.
So
It's
that,
based on what
even
they
though
say you get.
the spouse at
Have
home
your
has
ass
a
on,
house,
nigga. Have your ass
has
on
a car,
disability.
they still have this issue of being
They'll
able
put
to
your bankroll
live
on
through a
disability,
monthly
bartender.
income. And that monthly income is only income that is for them.
They have
correct?
your
Correct.
bankroll
So
trying to
even if he has a
collect a
pension, his
stimulus check.
pension cannot be used as an income for her. That
Terrible.
money is going to pay his bill.
Yeah, except for the
2021.
monthly income
And you know,
allowance
this
expansion.
video was made in
Right.
2012,
So
man.
this is
You know
pretty
what? We
important.
finished.
If a spouse is going into a
Finished.
facility,
Way behind
I
time.
would
Bartender.
think
The
that a
Jetsons ain't
properly
ready for the
structured
future.
Medicaid annuity that would income
December
would
the
be
12th.
very, very important.
Sure, but now, I don't like to call it income,
11
because
a.m.
it's really your
San
principal.
Francisco.
I
Really,
got
Drive.
you.
It's really returning your principal.
Right,
But
right.
since the income rules aren't that great, it's just
Monday.
more, that's why it's so important to save your principal.
Yes, it is.
2021.
It is. Now, if both, so that I'm clear, his money
Man, the system ain't right, bartender. It just ain't right. Here go another one of them robbery videos, man. The system ain't right. MoneySmartBoard.com.
Hello, I'm Michael Ruger.
Virtual
I'm the managing
financial
partner at Greenbush Financial
planner.
Group. And today we're going to be discussing, should you consider putting
You
your
get
house in a trust? We actually have this conversation a lot with our financial planning clients.
So you
and
can
most
get a
people
tax
think as soon as they hear
tax
the word
write-off.
trust, that's just for the uber wealthy, my last name isn't Rockefeller, so I'm never going to get a trust. But that's actually not true. Trusts have a lot of benefits that average families, average individuals should really consider accessing for events down the road. But to first start off in the most simple for people that are familiar with trust, what is a trust? Like a trust is essentially you're setting up a third party, a fictitious third party to own your assets. Sometimes that third party even has its own social security number, which is called a tax ID number. So it's like we're setting it up, and I'll go through why you would do that and what the benefits are. So there's really two types of trusts, and this is very important.
Yeah, who the hell you gonna trust, buddy?
Trust, and then there's irrevocable trust. So the main difference between the two is
so they took that
trust
power out your hands, son.
Because you're not really.
They said, no, we're going to pass a law. You can't trust yourself. You got to get a third party. Give your money to a third party, or else we're going to tax you.
Giving the asset.
You ain't exempt.
You can always take that asset.
You got to know your tax laws, buddy.
Irrevocable trust, as the name suggests.
Every dollar you made got a serial number, and we want it back.
Non-reversible gift to this trust that you're not supposed to be able to take back to you. And
see, non-reversible. See, they say they want their shit back.
Each trust has different types of benefits that we'll be discussing today.
You
so
thought you got paid.
Start with a revocable trust.
So you've seen all these laws to take it back.
Revocable trust, why would you want to set one up? The primary reason people set up these trusts is to avoid probate. Now, if anyone's ever had a family member or friend pass away and you've been the executor of their estate, you realize that probate is a huge headache. There's a lot of costs. There's a ton of paperwork. So to avoid that, any asset that's owned by a trust, there is no probate. Because when you go through the probate process, just like you got to pay attorneys, you got to pay accountants, you might have to pay an appraiser. It's a court-driven process. You got to deal with the courts. So if I own my house and I just wanted to go to my kids, essentially if it's just in my will and I will it to them, that's going to go through the probate process. So my kids might not take ownership of that house for 6 to 12 months while it's going through the probate process. Versus if I have a revocable trust on the house, my kids can take immediate access to that thing as soon as they look at the trust document and say, oh, it belongs to the kids, there's no probate issue, here you go, and it saves all the costs that you would have had to go through during the probate process. So a big benefit there. The other reason why people set up these revocable trusts is they have kids under the age of 25. So when you have younger children, if we have, a house, we have retirement accounts, we have insurance, if God forbid something happens to me and my wife simultaneously and we have young children, what essentially happens is those assets get set aside for the kids, but then when they turn 18, they have full access, which means they could come into large sums of money and they might not make the best financial decisions at the age of 18. They might decide not to go to college, or they may make some questionable life choices because they're just flush with
money. They're not going to college. They don't even know. They need a job. Fuck college. So no, that ain't a bad choice, buddy. You talking about they might go spend that shit up on, get robbed by a motherfucker like you or something. Or go out there and squander it away on drugs and living in the fast lane. But other than just on clothes and shit. But other than that, man, no, hell no.
Cash.
College ain't going, nigga.
Nigga,
if I'm rich, what I'm going to college for? Nigga, I'm gonna give me a fucking rap studio and start rapping, nigga. You crazy? What the fuck are you talking about? No motherfucking college no more. The only motherfuckers go to college is the motherfuckers who play basketball and football, nigga.
Set up these revocable trusts.
Trying to get to the NFL. They trying to get a job. They ain't going to college.
Both parents.
What the hell? College got to do with a job.
And it's only going to
only thing they get from college is a loan, nigga. Paying off a loan.
Get released or according
paying off a loan in a job
document. So I might say in my trust document, if that happens, money can always be spent for education.
That's
health,
another prison.
Living
my money locked up again.
The principal of that trust will not be released
until lock my money up,
at 25, a third at age 30, and a third at age 35. You can set these up however you want. They're completely custom and everyone has different wishes. But just knowing it's a way to kind of control those assets if you have younger children in the family. So that's really revocable trust. So let's kind of shift gears over to the irrevocable trust. Now this is the trust where you're giving assets. So why would someone subject themselves to more restrictions? Now, and revocable trusts have all the benefits of an irrevocable trust. So you avoid probate, you can control it for younger children, but it has two added benefits. So the one benefit is it protects assets from a long-term care event, and the other one is it shrinks your estate. Now, shrinking your estate, that is for the uber wealthy that say, hey, I've got a $20 million estate and I'm going to have a huge estate tax, so if I give money to this trust, I'm essentially removing it and shrinking my estate. Now, since most of us don't have that issue,
Shrinking
really
my
it's the first
estate.
one.
Do you hear that shit? They saying that the government is a crook, right? And if you don't know these laws, and then you don't even know that the government's a crook. You don't find these laws out until you pass away, and your kids find it out. You don't find it out. When you pass away, your kids find out all these laws and all these charges and shit that they charged you for being ignorant to the law, because there's no excuse, you know what I mean, of the law. So they done passed all these secret laws, and man, ain't told nobody about them. You ain't got to worry about it if you broke, but if you got just a little bit of money, they're gonna take all that back.
That kind of says, I want to protect assets.
Hey, they want nigga. No wonder niggas moving out of California. They gonna be homeless. All these laws.
Now again, if you've
All
ever
these
had a
secret
family member
laws.
that's had a long-term care event, whether they've needed home health aids, they've been in a nursing
Secretly
home,
trying to
assisted
steal all their
living,
property
you
back.
know that care
Nigga, this
is
sound like Jim Jones with a computer,
very, very,
with a tax law.
very expensive. And the way the system works now is you're essentially required to spend through almost all your assets, and then when
You
you're
gotta
well
hire
below
a
the poverty
lawyer
level, then Medicaid will
to
start
get the
paying
monkey
for
off your
care
back,
on your own.
Uncle Scam.
Now, with some advanced planning,
Mr. Grinch.
an irrevocable trust, you can protect a lot of your assets that should that long-term care event happen down the road, you don't have to spend down all of your assets. So that's like, I always ask
Told you,
clients,
you gotta
"You
spend
work
all
so
your
hard
money
to build these
just
retirement
to get
accounts, pay
this
off your house
bullshit.
and everything. Do you want those
Some
assets
health
for
care.
your kids or your
Or, no,
beneficiaries?
a tax
Or do you
break.
want it to go towards your care or
After
Medicaid
you
when
die.
they take it down the road
So
if there's
this,
a long-term care
this ain't
event?
even got nothing to do with health care. This got something to do with death tax. After you die, they're gonna bring all these secret taxes you owed while you was alive. Ain't that a blast?
Most people say,
And you thought all you had to pay for was your coffin. Please.
I wanted to go to my kids. Well, this is a way with a little
That was
bit
just
of
the
advanced
beginning.
planning, you can ensure that those assets do. There's a way Medicaid works is, if you have a long-term care event,
You're a
they
mean one,
have what's called a 5-year look
Mr.
back period.
Grinch.
So they look back
You
5
locked
years to say, if you
up
gifted any of
my
your assets away,
door.
you gifted it to a
I
trust,
didn't
individual,
know the
anything,
tax law,
it's back on the
didn't
table like it never
study
happened.
law in
Because what
public
Medicaid
school.
does not want to have happen
Now
is
I'm a
you have a long-term care event,
man.
and then you gift
Down
all your
behind the
assets to a trust and say,
fence
hey, it qualifies
at
for
your
Medicaid, start
local
paying for it. That's not what it's set up to do.
penitentiary
The reason why
with
there is
no
that advanced planning is if you want to do this, you have to put these
Ignorance
assets
is
in
no
the
excuse
irrevocable
for the
trust.
law,
It
for
has to
secret
make it
laws.
By the 5-year look back period.
Mr.
Once you pass
Grant.
the 5 years,
I should have been
there's a
Ebenezer
long-term care event.
Scrooge.
They can't look at those assets as a spend down because they haven't been yours for more than 5 years. Now, people say, well, I've heard your house with Medicaid, they can't make you sell it. It's not a countable asset. You know, to an extent that is accurate, that it's not a countable asset. If all you own is your house and you spent through all of your other assets, you won't qualify for Medicaid. However,
I don't want no
what people do
motherfucking
not realize
Medicaid.
is
That's what I
Medicaid-
want to know. What is Medicaid? Because whatever that shit is, I don't want it. It's like the fucking damn demic. I didn't come here with this shit. Somebody invented this shit. So what the fuck do I need it for? So just like the pandemic, what do I need it for, man? I damn sure don't need no Medicaid, Medi-Cal, none of that shit. I just get some insurance. So now why I still gotta pay after I die? That's why my question is. Why I still owe Uncle Scam after I die if I don't get none of this shit?
It puts a lien
Even if I get
against
insurance,
the house.
I'm
While they
still
can't make
going
you
out like
sell it
this?
while you're still living.
I gotta put my shit
They
in
put
a trust and figure out all these motherfucking tax laws and shit just to die?
a
That a bitch?
lien against it that says, listen, if we paid out
Costs too much to live and it damn sure and it costs more to die.
When you pass,
It costs more to
when
die than to
we're gonna
live.
make you sell that house and we're gonna recoup that money. So again, in the situation saying, I want my house to go to the kids, people don't realize that, yeah, you didn't have to sell it, you qualified for Medicaid, but Medicaid is waiting to take that house as soon as you pass. If you have the house owned by an irrevocable trust, and it's been in there for 5 years, they can't touch it. It's gonna go to your kids, which is usually a more ideal situation. So when you look at that, for the amount it may cost to set up a trust, if an attorney charges you $2 or $3 grand, it sounds like a lot of money. Well, how much is it for your house, the value of your house, to make sure it's passing to your kids, or to protect assets against a long-term care
A
event?
trust
which is
attorney.
very expensive.
Hey,
It's not
we
uncommon
moving.
for nursing
Hey,
homes
on the
to cost
move.
upward of
Chop.
$120,000 plus per year. So just
On the
like
move,
so,
boy.
again,
Tend
full
to-
advanced planning going a long way.
Hey, the
Now, I do get
Texans
some
ain't ready for the
questions, and these kinda
future.
came in from our blog and the website.
Well, we
that
are.
did want to go over, so that were very good questions. So when you
Playing
give
your game,
your,
baby.
house to a
Your
trust,
game,
the question
baby.
was, okay, I have a
Just you
star exemption.
and me.
I'm an enhanced
Mr.
star,
Grinch.
which reduced my property taxes.
Uncle Scam.
Do I still receive that if the house is owned by an irrevocable or irrevocable trust? The answer is
Your
yes.
game,
So
baby.
usually the estate attorney will put
Your
enough
game,
language in there
baby.
that says any of the tax
Scooby-Doo,
benefits
where
you
are
are
you?
getting as an individual
Nigga,
will
I'm
pass
dragging
through
women into
to
the
trust,
bedroom,
even though it's
nigga.
owned there.
Yabba dabba doo,
The
yabba
other
dabba doo.
question
I thought you
that was
knew
a
I'm
good one
dragging
is,
women into the
if the
bedroom
house
like a
is gifted to
caveman.
trust, do
Yabba
my
dabba doo,
beneficiaries still
yabba dabba
receive
doo.
a
I thought you
step-up
knew.
basis? Because if you own assets as an
Boo-boo.
individual, so if I buy my house for $20,000,
Hey, Yogi.
but now it's worth $250,000.
Smarter than average.
Pass, if it's owned by an individual,
Tax
you get a
lawyer.
step up in basis, which means when
Hey,
my beneficiaries get the
yo,
house,
boogie,
they pay no
Yogi.
tax on that.
Smarter than
It's the same
average tax
thing
lawyer.
where if the attorney is putting the right language in the trust document, you should still be able to maintain that step up in basis, so your beneficiaries don't have to pay tax on the gain.
Nigga,
which is
can't
a big
learn this
deal.
shit in
A lot of
public
people have
school.
owned their house for a long
Taught
time
me all
and
that
have
old
gain
George
built up in their
Washington. I was
primary
free.
residence.
Toby and
Here's the other
Kizzy
big one.
ass,
So,
Roots Week,
if
and,
I
I,
sell
and I'm still on
my
a
primary
plantation,
residence,
and
long
they
as
had
it's
really,
alive. So I put my
they didn't have me on the plantation, they had my money on the plantation, because they had all these tax laws to steal it back, right? So why they showing all these movie Roots and all these old slave movies, I'm thinking I'm a slave. No, nigga, you ain't a slave till you die, nigga. Then you see all these tax laws, how much you owe Uncle Scam, because ignorance is no excuse for the law, for not knowing the tax law.
house in
Nigga,
irrevocable
ain't no
trust when I'm
excuse.
70. And then I decided 75, hey, I'm gonna leave New York and go move to Florida, and I've had it in the trust for more than 5 years. Is there an issue with me buying another house since I transferred the ownership?
That's terrible,
And
ain't
the
it?
answer is no. There's no.
The rich, no wonder the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because the rich got lawyers and the poor people ain't got no lawyers. They don't know the law, and ignorance is no excuse. No wonder the rich get richer, because the poor folks don't know the law.
There's no issue. If
Poor-
the irrevocable
poor
trust
man
owns
lawyer,
my
nigga.
house here,
Where is the poor man lawyer? Is he in the law library? Is he in the law library?
the irrevocable trust will sell
Is
the
he in the
house
law
and buy
library?
the next house. Now here's the number one
God's heart,
mistake
nigga, God's
that
heart. I
people
love you
make
too, Mother
in
G.
these real estate transactions. So there's a lot of stuff going on at these closings.
Thank you.
We've seen it happen where someone will
Happy
own
New
a
Year,
house in an irrevocable trust. They'll have satisfied the 5-year look back period. They sell their house. The intent is to have the trust to buy the new house. But at the closing, they make the check payable